Bonjour à toutes et à tous, bienvenue dans la première émission de l'Union juive française pour la paix. Nous traiterons dans un cycle d'émissions prochain les thématiques qui nous sont chères, à savoir l'antiracisme, une parole juive dans l'antiracisme politique français, ainsi que la solidarité avec la Palestine. Et nous allons commencer notre première émission avec un camarade palestinien d'Israël, Majd Kayyal. Donc sans plus attendre, je vais vous présenter Mike, je vais vous présenter Majd, ou plutôt Majd va se présenter lui-même. Majd, qu'est-ce qui t'amène à Paris? Why did you come over here?
Yes, actually, we are here for in a tour of concert for Better Than Berlin. It's a music album, songs album that I wrote. Its lyrics and my friend and my friend Faraj Sliman. He's a composer, a pianist, a jazzist. He's the singer and the composer of this work, and we are touring it in Berlin, in London, and now in Paris. And then going back to Haïfa, to Palestine, to end this tour in the place where everything started. And it's actually, we are excited. It's tomorrow in Paris, and we are excited because everywhere in London and Berlin we are meeting so many Palestinians and Syrians and Lebanese that are exiled, that are refugees from their homeland, especially Palestinians that were uprooted from their homeland. And I'm just meeting people who I know for 15 years or 10 years, and I only can know them through Facebook or through their writings. And now I'm meeting them for the first time because we never had a chance to meet in our homeland. We never had the chance to meet in our cities. Friends from Gaza, friends from different places in Palestine or friends that are Palestinians but never visited Palestine because they are refugees. It's a huge opportunity to meet them, and it's an amazing and exciting and sad in the same time, very sad feeling that those people who could be a very close daily friends, you have the chance to meet them only in a very rare circumstances. So we are feeling very good that we are gathering a great number of Arabs, especially Palestinians and Syrians, because like people who are exiled because of the war, and in Palestine people who were uprooted from their homeland and became refugees because of the Israeli colonialism. It's a great feeling that you can bring people together and they can express the same feelings, the same emotions, the same ideas through music and through lyrics. So and tomorrow we are doing this in Paris, and we hope just to have fun and to end up with great feelings.
Je te remercie beaucoup pour ces précisions. Donc, avec toi, Majd, en tant que Palestinien, la musique n'est jamais éloignée de la politique. Et justement, je voudrais en profiter pour te demander de te décrire politiquement un petit peu. Quelle est ta trajectoire politique? Quelle est ta proximité avec des partis politiques, avec des associations, des regroupements d'étudiants, etc. Parce que ce que je n'ai pas précisé pendant mon introduction, et je m'en excuse, c'est que Majd, tu es un écrivain et un militant politique très actif depuis très longtemps.
I actually done my share in in different places. Today I'm not affiliated with any political organization. Thanks God.
Yeah.
I grew up very close to a political party, like my parents were, and I was as a child, as a teenager, in a political party called National Democratic Assembly. My family came originally from like both my mother and my father were in a movement called Abna al-Balad, which is a very small leftist Marxist movement that was banned in Palestine in 48 territory in Palestine for a long while, and then there was political processes that I went through. I left that party when I was like 18, 19. I worked in some NGOs, human rights NGOs. I worked for a legal NGO called Adala, which is defending human rights of Palestinians, especially inside Israel. But in some points, I really started to feel and think that we need to think in a more critical way of the whole establishment of organization in Palestine, especially under the direct control of what is so-called Israeli citizenship. And I think that the whole political structure that we have is really controlled and really shaped by the forces of oppression. And in a way, we have to think, I do believe that we must think outside of the current structures that we have. And in order to be able to confront this regime, in order to be able to confront this oppression, we have to think in ways that are maybe now unimaginable. We have to imagine new ways and new structure of work, new structure of doing. Because
je me permets de t'interrompre juste une petite seconde. Est-ce que ça ne vaudrait pas non plus la peine d'essayer de s'appuyer sur des structures politiques déjà existantes et même de les orienter vers une ligne politique plus proche de celle de ta génération, par exemple, pour profiter un petit peu, pour bénéficier un petit peu de leurs ressources militantes, etc.
No, I think politics is not, it's not a categories that you do this or you do that, and things doesn't really like absolutely contradicts each other. Politics has dynamics that are always capable of changing. Political parties, political movement, even the most traditional one, have the capability of changing and evolving and turn into different things. But in order for this to happen, you need powers from outside to affect it, to affect the discourse, to build new imagination, to build new ideas, to bring new visions of organizing, of work, of ideas. And I think it's important also not only to think how you can change things from inside the political structure. And just to be clear, I think that there's great people doing great job in trying to change these structures, and it's important. And I'm not denying that there is a huge importance for this. But there is also another importance for people from outside to try and make some kinds of pressure. Sometimes it's intellectual pressure. Sometimes it's media pressure. Sometimes it's trying to push the political structure or push the political parties or the traditional movement into things that they are hesitating to do. Sometimes and we see it a lot in Palestine. We see that the political parties and organizations are following the strength of the people, following the activism of people, following the street when it moves. So I do think that there is a huge importance on working for working on different level. And in the end of the day, it's a whole organism, political organism, that in a way, the political parties, the traditional political parties, are in the middle between radical visions of liberation and, in the same time, kinds of oppression that are applied by the state, and the structure need to balance between all of them. So the more pressure you put as a radical movement or a radical people that are working and trying to change the political reality, the more possibility you have to make changes even inside the structure. So I don't see it, as a total contradiction and war. I see it as a dynamics that you always need to evolve, you always need to progress, and you always also need to find a way of debate, a way of dialogue. But in the end of the day, you have to push. You have to make progress and to sometimes to change the reality and force the political structure to follow this.
Je voudrais en profiter pour donner la parole à notre camarade de l'Union juive française pour la paix, Michèle Sibony.
Oui, en t'écoutant parler, Maj, je me posais la question, est-ce que tu as des exemples à nous donner de cette influence d'une radicalité autour de ces partis qui les ait poussés à faire mieux? Et pour le dire vite, je pensais aux Gilets jaunes en France, par exemple, qui a été une forme de radicalité, mais qui n'a pas que les partis n'ont pas suivi, les syndicats non plus. Encore que, difficile de mesurer, mais Est-ce que tu aurais un exemple?
There is many examples in Palestine, especially in the last let's say 10 years. There is many paths that, and also not all the parties are the same, not all the organizations are the same, but for taking, like, for example, if we think of the uprising against the Prover plan, which was an uprising in 2013 opposing an Israeli plan to destroy to demolish 50 villages in the area of the Naqab, southern Palestine. And we saw there that the political organizations and parties had their line and their vision on the struggle, which was more legal, more kind of protests, but protests that are legal and that ask permission from the state and from the police, like, let us organize and let us protest here, let us make it a demonstration here. And there was other groups that came and say, no, we are not asking permission to protest. We are not asking for permissions in order to protect thousands, hundreds of thousands of people from confiscating their lands. And if the people in the Naqab cannot live in a safe and normal life, no one will. So we will cut the roads, we will block the roads, we will go to the streets, we will take over the streets until the plan is cancelled. In the beginning, there was a kind of opposing from the political parties to these demonstrations, and they tried to control and to take over the demonstrations and even, like, retroactively legalize them with the police. But with, like, week after week, month after the month, even the youth in these parties started to oppose the leadership and started to want to be part of this historical moment, because in the end of the day, the people in these Palestinian parties are people who grew up in houses that gave them political values, gave them a lot of political values that are important. So you can see that the youth start to move, and then there is an important point where, for example, there is an important point where the political party wants to save its relevance, and in order to do that, they feel that if we don't join, we will stay out of history. We will stay out of the story. So this is another. For example, another example is the uprising in last year, in last May, 2021. You know, the general strike that was declared. It was declared by the High Committee of the Arab leaderships, لجنة المتابعة العليا, we call it in Arabic. And they followed the protests started in the very beginning of May everywhere. Even in Jerusalem, it started in late April. But in 18th of May, like 2 days before the 18th of May, they felt that if they don't do any step, they will be completely erased from the story, and they have to make something in order to follow up what is happening. And then they declared this general strike. And the beautiful thing is that there is always a dynamic. Like, they do this step in order to be relevant, but then you as youth movement or people who are working outside those framing, you take this opportunity that they made and you develop it into something bigger. So instead of, it was in the beginning, it was a general strike only for 48, because it's the leadership of the 48 territories. So it was only for 48. And the people and the youth movement everywhere said, no, all Palestinians everywhere will join this strike. And we are taking the decision over this strike. We are making the media for this strike, general strike. We are publishing, we are adapting it. We are adopting it. And then it became something way bigger than what they expected. So it's kind of the dynamic that you always have to change and follow.
Thank you.
Et il semble d'ailleurs qu'en termes de rapport de force, c'est plutôt le mouvement social palestinien qui a la primeur, qui a en fait la gageure sur les partis politiques, que l'inverse, comme du coup ici en France. C'est une très bonne chose que tu commences à parler de ces fameux événements de mai-juin 2021, parce qu'on veut t'interroger là-dessus. Donc on aurait bien aimé avoir ton opinion sur ce qui s'est passé, parce qu'il nous semble que c'est un moment charnière, que c'est un bouleversement qui n'a pas fini de produire ses différents effets, notamment sur la stratégie nationale palestinienne. Donc on aimerait bien, dans un premier temps, que tu présentes très rapidement ce qui s'est passé et que tu expliques, selon toi, quel effet est-ce que cela a pu produire sur la question nationale palestinienne.
You are supposing that there is a national strategy in Palestine, and it's not true, unfortunately. There is maybe no one knows. Maybe they are keeping it in secret, but the PA maybe have. I don't know if there is anyone there that is thinking of anything. No one. It's a black hole there, but there is no national strategy. The PA is what we know. It's an agency that is serving the occupation and serving the security of the occupation, oppressing people in the West Bank, feeding the capitalist insanity of banks and of corporations that are just making the West Bank a place that you cannot live in cooperation with the Israeli goals. And there is a system that is built there in order to keep the Palestinian society in a situation that is not capable of resistance by demolishing and diminishing the social solidarity between people and making people able to stay resilient in front of the Israeli occupation. This is what's happening in the West Bank. In Gaza, it's total obscure what Hamas really see for the future of the place. The resistance in Gaza is very important, but in the same time, there is a huge risk of turning this kind of resistance as a resistance that defend only Gaza and defend only the needs of the people in Gaza, instead of being a wider liberation movement. And also when the resistance becomes a regime, becomes a kind of authority, it starts to exercise many policies, many practices that are very problematic. So there is no strategy in the wide grand way of seeing a strategy, but I think there is a discourse. There is a discourse in Palestine that is being changed, that is being growing within the time. And this discourse, I think, it's the discourse of unity. It's the discourse that rethink the Nakba not only as a process of ethnic cleansing by exiling people outside of Palestine and demolishing villages, but of a more complicated system of fragmentation of the Palestinian people. So the continuity of the Nakba is the continuity of the fragmentation of Palestinians, and in order to stop this Nakba, in order to liberate the Palestinian people, the most essential thing to think about is the unity of the Palestinian people. Imagining and thinking and wishing and remembering, all of us, no matter what the fragmentation did with us, imagining the same visions of liberation, of life. So what the Zionist project tried to do in Palestine from the first days is to base this homeland and to cut it into different kind of fragmentation that can be geographical, that can be social, that can be a class fragmentation, many that can be religious fragmentation, and to prevent the people of Palestine from identifying and understanding and thinking of themselves as a whole. And it's made by a very physical and actual practices of building different legal frameworks, different daily life, different transportation, different healthcare, different citizenship, different everything for each Palestinian. So a person in Gaza live a whole different life than a person in Al-Quds, in Jerusalem. Person in Jerusalem live in a very different daily life than a person from the West Bank or from 48, or if he is or she is a refugee in Lebanon or Syria, etc. And therefore, because they are living in such a different situations, within the time, they start to develop different political thinking and different political goals and different political practices and different also it evolves gaps between different Palestinians within their relation with the colonialism. So the main mission, and that what is really clear in the new discourse that is evolving, starting to evolve in Palestine, that in order to break through all this, we need to rethink the Nakba as a question of fragmentation, and the solution, the liberation from the Nakba, is a liberation of unity. Now, we are not talking about unity like all of us needs to be the same people and think the same, but we are talking about understanding that we are part of one social collective that have to think of its future and debate our future all together.
Yes, je voulais dire que j'étais un peu étonnée par ce que tu as dit sur Gaza, parce que je suis peut-être naïve, mais il me semblait que Gaza, par exemple, notamment en mai-juin 2021, avait rejoint la cause nationale et l'unité en se manifestant très clairement sur ce qui se passait à Jérusalem et ce qui se passait à Lod et à Ramleh, etc.
It's true, but I think that, and it's not naive, because I also think that it was a very important point in the strategy and the political direction that the resistance in Gaza is going toward. And I still think this was one of the most important points in that year. But we have also to wonder and be critical, is it a one-time thing that was done because of the huge pressure, popular pressure that was in the street, or is this a strategy that the leadership that is controlling Gaza is really applying? Because we can see that on many levels there is negotiations, there is some kinds of agreements that are being done indirectly with the Israel in order to keep, and I can understand why it's important for the resistance to keep the life in Gaza able to.
When you speak about agreements or negotiations, it's with who? Avec qui ces accords et ces
it's indirect, but
négociations?
It's indirect, but I think there is some level of understandings that it's a mutual interest also for the Israelis to keep Gaza quiet, the so-called to keep Gaza quiet. And in some point you have to ask yourself, is the authority in Gaza, which is led by Hamas, are they making enough in order to resist the Israeli policies of fragmentation between the West Bank and Gaza? Or is the priority for them to keep control over Gaza and to keep control over the government of Gaza? So the contradiction here is between the importance of the resistance in Gaza, but in the same time, when this resistance become a regime, become a government, it has a lot of obligations that they need to keep. They have a lot of social obligations that they need to keep because there is human life, there is people who need to eat, there is people who need to work, and this balance, okay, make the resistance sometimes to start think of itself only as as a resistance that its target is to defend Gaza and to defend the interests of the people of Gaza and the government of Gaza. Now, this is, we all understand, and there is no discussion that this is very important, and the people of Gaza has suffered enough, and they have all the right to defend their health, their needs, their work, their food, everything. We don't discuss that. But in the same time, when each sector, when each part of the Palestinian people think of how to defend itself as a sector, as a part, we are playing indirectly to the hands of Israeli fragmentation. So you have to balance this kind of relation and to be very aware and to be very, very sensitive in doing that. And I think that the authority in Gaza is not sensitive enough and not careful enough in making this balance.
Je réalise un petit peu en t'écoutant parler qu'en France, on a une conception assez restrictive de la Nakba, même dans le public militant, de solidarité avec la Palestine, etc. Pour nous, la Nakba, c'est simplement, j'avais envie de dire, mais l'expulsion, l'exil forcé de centaines de milliers de Palestiniens à l'issue de la guerre qui a suivi l'établissement de l'État d'Israël en 1948. Et en t'écoutant parler, justement, on voit bien que c'est un processus. Par définition, un processus, c'est quelque chose d'inachevé. Un processus de fragmentation, dont on connaît un petit peu les racines, mais dont on voit encore que c'est très important et qu'il continue de produire beaucoup d'effets. Ça m'évoque une autre question qui est à la fois sémantique et politique. On parle beaucoup... Enfin, alors toi, d'ailleurs, la manière dont tu parles des Palestiniens d'Israël, tu les appelles les Palestiniens de 1948, ceux qui étaient là avant l'établissement de l'État d'Israël, et les sionistes parlent d'Arabes israéliens. Et il y a de nombreuses enquêtes d'opinion, à ma grande surprise, qui ont montré que les Palestiniens de 1948 se définissaient ou s'identifiaient de moins en moins à la Palestine, à l'identité nationale palestinienne, et qui s'identifiaient au contraire de plus en plus à leur israélité, je ne sais pas très bien comment dire, et qu'ils se définissaient de plus en plus comme des Arabes israéliens. Alors il y a peut-être certains biais, peut-être qu'ils ont peur de donner le fond de leur pensée, mais du coup ma question, j'y viens, c'est est-ce que ces événements de mai-juin, justement contre la fragmentation des différents secteurs du corps social palestinien, est-ce que tu penses que pour les Palestiniens de 1948, ça va renforcer leur sentiment national?
I think that it has two sides. Everything has two sides. So no, I understood. It's fine.
It's amazing.
In a way, there is something in the heart and in the feeling of people that has changed, because people has felt this collectivity, this national collectivity, in the minute they felt attacked and felt that they are able to bring themselves together and stand against this aggression. People in 48 felt more closer to the people in Jerusalem, to the people in the West Bank, to the people in Gaza. They felt more pride, because for the first time, the world is talking about them. So you, as a young man or woman, as a child, you feel proud when Haïfa is mentioned everywhere, when Akka is mentioned everywhere, when Led is mentioned everywhere. So there is this kind of national pride that is important on the level of identity. In the same time, there is a huge oppression happening on the ground. Israelis are systematically and quietly applying extra, very, very, very dangerous methods of oppression, of persecution against youth, even against children, against any political activist, any social activist, everyone. There is a huge process of detentions. Take, for example, only the detentions that happened right after we witnessed like about in the end of the day it became like more than 3,000 detentions in less than a month, huh? And then yes, only in 48.
In 48.
But what we don't hear about is the daily invitations and detentions and arrests that are happening quietly without anyone knowing about anything. Huh? It's the Shabak calls and inviting you. It's a police coming to your father and telling him, if you don't bring your son to a conversation, I will arrest you and your wife. It's persecuting someone for a sentence in Facebook or in a comment on Twitter or something like this. And it's happening on the ground. And also we can see how like the escalation of settling and bringing settlers to what the so-called mixed cities, Haïfa, Akka, Lid, Ramli. It's becoming insane. Akka. The process is being very accelerated after May. So there is a huge oppression happening on the ground quietly, and it also affects people. But what I really want to talk about that is more important than those two emotions, that is fear and pride, is the change in the political state of mind of people, where people started to realize that they are capable of political act. Because what we had until now, and we started talking about the political traditional leadership and traditional organization, is that, and after the parties also the NGOs, there is an idea that evolved in Palestine that politics, that social work, that political work, that activism is a profession. It's for the people in the political party. It's for the people in the NGO. Is for the very few people that learn political science and philosophy because they couldn't be applied to anything else. Huh? And it was a very rooted idea that politics is for the people who make politics. And even if you want to demonstrate, you have to wait for someone to organize the demonstration, because they are the people who know. They are the people who can organize. They are the people who can organize a meeting. They are the people who can organize an activity in the street. And what happened, I think, is that we witnessed a break in this. We witnessed that the people, many sectors from many groups, started to realize that I don't need to wait to anyone in order to organize, and I don't need to wait to anyone in order to go and demonstrate. I can just collect my friends. We are 20 people. We can go to the street. This nuance of initiating a political act or initiating a social act is the main change that we witnessed, not only in 48 but in all Palestine. I think this was the most important change that we are witnessing, and still, I'm not saying it's still early, it's still the beginning, but there is a change that we can feel. And most important than that, and it's important to comprehend, that also the political frameworks that we know, the structures that we know of organizing, can also be changed. So we are used that who is organized, political parties, committees, popular groups like that, movements, like there is names to the way or to the framework of organizing, right? NGO, political party, council, and then you realize that there is another forms of bringing people together. It can be a WhatsApp group of cousins that they usually talk about their daily life and jokes, etc., etc. But they start to discuss politics, and together they can decide to move. If there are 12 cousins that have, each one of them have 10 friends, they are capable of moving and changing the reality in their village or in their neighborhood. I think this is the most important thing, and this is what we need to understand and support and develop instead of just trying to reproduce the same methods of organizing.
Alors, justement, c'est très intéressant ce que tu dis là. Qu'ont fait, alors là je parle de 48 du coup, ce qu'ont fait justement les partis arabes d'Israël de la liste unifiée quand ils ont vu que dans chaque village, que dans chaque ville mixte, avec beaucoup de guillemets, les gens se sont mobilisés par eux-mêmes et pour eux-mêmes, sans attendre l'appel officiel du parti ou du syndicat, etc. Est-ce qu'ils ont réagi rapidement ? Est-ce qu'ils ont réagi efficacement ? Et est-ce que, plus structurellement sur le long terme, est-ce qu'ils vont changer un petit peu leur méthode d'organisation ou est-ce que tu penses qu'ils vont essayer de faire de la politique comme avant ?
To be fair, first of all, when we say they, like about the political parties, let's not forget that there is a huge amount of people that are members, that are committed to the parties, but they are also part of their village and their street, and they are active, and they are local leaders, and they are amazing people, etc., etc. That's important. So what I'm going to say is about the official position of a political party, because some people get a little bit sensitive about this, and they are right. I think that they couldn't really follow. They couldn't really follow, and their way of response was very traditional way, in terms that let's make one big demonstration in one city and bring everyone to exactly, and make it like make it in coordination with the police, and everything safe, and everything needs to be 100% organized, etc., etc. They did that. They couldn't. But I also think that they could feel, and their members, the majority of their members, did not stay still and did not totally obey this. Now, I think that the political parties or the traditional structure, the problem with the traditional structure is that it's a social structure where people have their beliefs and their also their benefits and their profit from this and their status from this. And when you are telling people, let's forget all that. Let's forget the high committee and the higher committee and the higher committee and the little lower committee and the general assembly. Let's forget all this. You are taking from them some kind of power, some kind of status, some kind even of benefit and profit sometimes. And also you are taking from them, if you are thinking of people who are doing this for many years, you are taking from them the things they know, the things they grew up in. They grew up in other era where the values of the political party, of the political hierarchy are important. So it's kind of a social and psychological issue that is really sometimes hard to confront. I do believe that we need to respect some of this aspect, to understand where it comes from, but to keep pushing through and to make sure that the people in these places can listen to you and can still learn and can, even if they are not with you in the street, but they have to believe and spread this word within those frames. But I don't really count on a change in this, and I don't think they are capable of as a whole structure.
J'ai l'impression qu'il n'a pas répondu à ta question sur l'enquête sur les Arabes israéliens qui étaient contents d'être Arabes israéliens. Oui. Et ça m'intéresse qu'il y réponde, parce que je ne suis pas sûre, moi, de cette enquête. You didn't answer to his question about this poll about Arab Israelis happy to be Arab Israelis and more and more. Do you think it's true?
No, I don't think there is more or less.
It's not about being happy of being Arab Israelis. It's just when I saw the methodology of these polls, and people, 48 Palestinians, have to choose among a list to identify themselves. They pick either Palestinians or Arab Israelis, blah, blah, blah. And a vast majority of them describe themselves as, firstly, as Arab Israeli. And first, what do you
Who
think?
made this poll?
Exactly. That no,
I will tell you why. Because when an Israeli comes and asks
that's
a poor old man, what do you describe yourself? When your oppressor is coming and asking you, and you are living 70, 80 years of oppression,
you
cannot expect free decision and free speech and free. First of all, I don't agree that the majority. I don't know what poll it is, what statistic it is. I don't agree that it's true. I think the situation is different. I think we are in a better situation today.
If I'm putting pressure on you about that, it's because on Twitter everywhere when you try to debate with with Zionists, let's say, they always say, but you are the ideological one. You say that they are Palestinians, but they feel as Arab Israel. But so it's more here than there. It's a political issue.
It's the problem with how colonialists see the people they colonize, like as a whole. That they think like this, they do like this. It's the stupidity of colonialism. Huh? Yeah. That there is a Palestinians can defend themselves, whatever, like, and even the absurdity of the mission itself, like always you need to identify yourself and to be like in a very tricky, sensitive, how do we I don't want to identify myself in order to have rights. I don't need to. And it's a question of feeling. It's a question that mixes, again, pride and fear and memory and desire and political desire and practical daily life. It's a question that is way more complicated and way more sophisticated than answering it in 2 words and pick from a list. I really do think that it's the question of how do we identify ourselves. It's not really relevant. And you know what? Even if a person identify himself as an Arab Israeli, okay, which I wouldn't do even if you if you force me to. So he doesn't deserve rights. He deserves his house to be demolished. He deserves to be arrested only because he speaks Arabic in the mall. I think this kind of questions we need to be like more careful in dealing with, because sometimes only by confronting these kind of questions you give them some kind of legitimacy. And more, I will tell you more, sometimes our political parties become obsessive with giving counter answers to this. Like it's a big deal that you have to answer. We are Palestinians. It's a historical fact. It's nothing to have feelings. But feelings doesn't matter. You can feel Scandinavian if you love. It's a matter of historical fact of being part of an oppressed group by a regime that is a colonial regime. It's very simple.
Et en plus, moi, je trouve qu'il avait quand même partiellement répondu dans la mesure où il avait dit que le fait qu'il y ait tellement de manifestations, d'actions populaires, politiques très fortes dans la Palestine de 48, du coup, ça a renouvelé ce sentiment de fierté, etc., de pride. Et donc, voilà, donc ça répondait aussi à la question.
Mais moi, ça m'intéressait de l'entendre dire ce qu'il a dit, parce que, par exemple, je peux témoigner du fait que quand il m'est arrivé de rencontrer des Palestiniens de 48, comme on dit, je sais le temps que ça prend pour que la façade de protection se rompe et que la méfiance se rompe. C'est-à-dire, il faut vraiment du temps et que les personnes finissent par vraiment te croire comme un interlocuteur pour ouvrir la porte et te dire ce qu'ils ressentent vraiment.
Ouais.
Donc ça...
Moi aussi.
When you can be fired from your work because you write the word shahid, or because you expressed solidarity after a massacre in Gaza. How do you expect for people in an ordinary daily life to say, yes, I'm a proud Palestinian? You cannot expect that. But it's really, it's the ugliness of colonialism when it really tries to erase your identity and question who you are and question your right to live equally and freely because of your identity or because what do you feel toward yourself. And it pushed us Palestinians to some absurd points of even trying to prioritize our identities, like I'm first Arab and then Israeli, or I'm first Israeli and then Arab, or I'm first Muslim and then Israeli and then Arab. It gets to an absurd and in a funny situation, very funny situation.
Ça me rappelle l'histoire de Abir Kopti, qui est une copine militante de Haïfa, qui avait participé à un concours télévisé de connaissances générales qu'elle avait gagné. Elle avait passé toutes les étapes et elle avait gagné. Et à ce moment-là, un des jurys lui a posé la question simple, es-tu fière du drapeau israélien ? Et elle n'a pas pu répondre et elle a perdu sa première place.
Alors, je pense qu'on peut profiter de cette anecdote justement pour avancer un petit peu. C'est très intéressant, encore une fois, ce que tu as dit sur la Nakba comme processus de fragmentation. Et c'est une analyse politique de ce qui se joue, de la manière dont le régime israélien traite de façon différenciée les Palestiniens de 48, les Palestiniens de Jérusalem, les Palestiniens de Gaza, les Palestiniens de l'étranger, les Palestiniens de la Cisjordanie, etc. Il y a un concept juridique pour ça. Ça s'appelle l'apartheid. Justement, récemment, il y a eu Amnesty International qui a corroboré ce fait qui était déjà établi depuis longtemps par différentes ONG juridiques israéliennes d'ailleurs et autres. Qu'est-ce que tu penses que ça peut... Enfin, comment ça peut aider la lutte pour la dignité, pour la justice des Palestiniens, le fait qu'on mette des mots précis sur les choses et le fait qu'on utilise le droit international de façon aussi radicale pour mettre des mots précis sur les choses, justement.
It's a huge question, to be honest, to answer it, because the answer is mainly not about Palestine. It's about the international law and the international community. I think that what caused or what make this possible is a change in the status of the international community and the human rights sphere in general, like the UN, all the human rights institutions that are related to the UN and came after the World War II. And I think that the word that is changing is making this kind of institution less relevant than ever. And when they are less relevant to administrating or balancing this kind of relation between states, because national state itself has become less and less powerful in front of corporations, in front of neoliberalism, in front of the late capitalism we are witnessing. I think that the status of this human rights institution is not the same. It's less relevant. And because it's less relevant, it's a little bit more, easier to make this kind of changes because Israel don't care. Israel doesn't care anymore. Back in the days, in the 50s, in the 60s, when Israel sought the legitimacy from international community, it was important. It was important to save like the facade of democracy, of freedoms, of equality for the citizens, etc., etc. But now when Israel is relying not an international community and UN. It's relying on the weapons that comes from the US. It's relying on the support of the Emirat and the support of Saudi Arabia, etc., and the huge corporations about the world that are involved in Israeli occupation and benefiting from Israeli occupation. It's less important. So there is little bit more space for Palestinians to affect this discourse. Now, I want to go back to where we started. That politics is not just black and white, I'm for this, against this. It's kind of a liquid dynamics that always change and always have spaces to change and to evolve and to alternate. And I think this is what happens. The Palestinians for years, the radical Palestinians for years are saying apartheid, apartheid, apartheid. And now we can see that this huge work is starting to affect the structure that is very established and very traditional and very centric. Now, it's not enough. And remember, it's a legal term, and legal terms are always very flexible, are always playful, are always meant and written in order to be explained in 1,000 ways. And it's always who explain them, who interpret them. This is the question. But what is important here is to see that, yes, what is called radicalism in Palestine, the liberation movement in Palestine that is capable of saying the truth how we believe it is, of saying what we really believe, not what the international community want to hear. This movement is capable of making changes. Now, this movement, in order to be able to continue make more changes, more progress toward liberation, it also need to develop and make progress from the apartheid framework to more liberatory frameworks that are important and more capable of explaining and understanding the political situation in Palestine. And you have to see the importance of Amnesty report about apartheid, but you also have to keep pressure in order to make future progresses. So it's not a kind of personal relation that we have to thank Amnesty for anything. It's an important progress, but there is a very, 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 very long way to do in order to reach even the minimum of supporting the historical rights of the Palestinian people.
Et du coup, ça nous permet d'avancer un petit peu sur la question de l'ordre géopolitique international qui a été bouleversé, en tout cas d'un point de vue qui peut être d'ailleurs un petit peu européocentré, avec l'invasion impérialiste de l'Ukraine par la Russie au mois de février. On a bien vu que cette agression militaire très très brutale avait suscité beaucoup de sympathie, beaucoup de solidarité, beaucoup de menaces de sanctions. Beaucoup. Donc en fait, un peu tout ce qu'on demande depuis très longtemps pour la Palestine. D'ailleurs, je précise, faire une petite anecdote, c'est arrivé pendant la campagne électorale française et on a vu des gens, notamment au centre-gauche, appeler à livrer des armes aux Ukrainiens pour qu'ils puissent se défendre contre l'impérialisme russe. On imaginait très mal ces gens appelés à fournir des armes à des Arabes, et encore moins à des Palestiniens d'ailleurs. Mais ça, c'est une autre question, c'est pas là où je veux emmener le débat maintenant. Quelle place ça laisse à la Palestine? Un petit peu le fait que ce réagencement des équilibres internationaux, est-ce que tu vois que c'est une menace pour la cause palestinienne, ou alors est-ce que pour toi, même si effectivement c'est plus difficile de parler de la Palestine dans ce contexte-là à l'international, on s'en fiche et on continue le job?
Yes, first of all, it's we don't want. There is no race. There is no competition between. We know that, but there is in everything that's happening. I think the main effect it has on Palestinians is the realization of unfairness in media and in the Western world. this is a notion that is very important. The importance of this is not only that they are or they are feeling rage, or they are feeling this unfairness, but what is important here is that Palestinian leadership, the traditional Palestinian leadership, for many years, they try to base every step they do upon this obscure nuance of international community. Everything they do, Oslo international community, the PA was based on like everything they are do, all the oppression they do, all the steps they do to support to protect the Israeli security, international community. We don't want to call this square Dalal al-Mughrabi. We don't want to remember Ghassan Kanafani because of the international community. We don't want them to see us with kufi covering our head, etc., etc., etc. Now, when we are seeing how this international community, that is not international, it's European and North American, no? When we see how this community is acting, we are more convinced that there is no one to depend on but ourselves. And this is important. This is important not because the opinions in the world are not important. Of course it's important. Of course it's important what every individual in the world thinks about Palestine. But we have this years of colonialism made us less confident of ourselves, of our ability to change the reality, of our ability to make political act that can bring new reality, new future. And when you start to realize that there is a huge hypocrisy in all this, and you cannot depend on any international community, this is maybe an entrance to start thinking of depending on your own self and taking the future on your own hand. And because this comes after the uprising in May, the two things are combined in one kind of emotion that is evolving within many people, that we cannot depend on anyone but ourselves. And because of this, you have to build this confidence. You have to build this social ability of resilience and of resisting colonialism. So I think this is what important, and not all the regional and the strategic and the huge changes, because neither Iran nor Russia nor the States, no one really cares about the rights of people and the daily rights of people that want to live in dignity, that want to live in freedom and liberation.
En même temps, je suppose que tu es conscient du rapport de force, quoi. J'ai l'impression, moi, de David et Goliath, avec un David palestinien et un Goliath occidentalo-israélien. J'ai envie de dire, vous n'avez pas peur de l'idée de ne compter que sur ses propres forces? Ça veut dire quoi dans le monde d'aujourd'hui?
I don't think that it's only your own forces. We are a small number of people, first of all, and the years of fragmentation and oppression has really made us very weak, like institutionally, socially. Of course, I know the weaknesses that we have because of the colonialism and many other reasons. But I think that to start building up power, and we have power in the world, there is a huge amount of people around the world that support Palestinians and know the truth about Palestine and believe that better future is possible for this land. But in order to be able to move this, to mobilize this power, to enlarge this power, to convince more people, and to make the people who already convinced move and make more acts, you have to start from yourself. You have to start from building your own capacity and building your own people, building your own vision, and then you can expect the whole world to come with you. But the more important thing is, when I say us, it's also important not to think of the world as Europe and North America, and to know that there is huge numbers that support Palestine in Africa, in South America, in Asia. And it's important for us also to change this Eurocentric vision that only think to the West, instead of thinking how much power we have in the whole world that is not controlled by imperialist power. Or it is controlled, oppressed by imperialist power, of course. But so I think this is an important notion. And of course, I think that any kind of liberation is, in the end of the day, a more holistic process that, of course, needs the support of everyone who believes in the values of equality, of liberation, of freedom, of dignity. But what was destroyed in Palestine is the confidence of Palestinians in their ability to make political decisions and to make political change and to organize freely and to change their future. And we have to rebuild this.
It's very important.
Moi, je trouve ça fascinant ce que tu viens de dire en fait sur les conséquences du traitement différencié par la communauté internationale, en fait la communauté occidentale, de la terrible, et ça remet absolument pas ça en cause du tout, de la terrible agression militaire contre l'Ukraine et de ce qui se passe dès qu'il y a des bombardements sur Gaza et ailleurs. Et c'est une clarification peut-être qui peut être positive aussi pour la jeune génération. Alors peut-être que les plus anciens sont moins naïfs sur cette question, mais voilà, peut-être que ça a pu et que ça pourra produire des effets bénéfiques là-dessus. Et là, ça me permet encore une fois de faire le lien avec la dernière thématique qu'on aimerait aborder avec toi, Majd, qui est celle de la question juive, ou plutôt des questions juives. Parce qu'avec Michèle, quand on a réfléchi aux questions qu'on aimerait bien te poser, on a distingué deux formes de questions juives. La première, c'est la question juive intérieure, celle de 48, justement. Comment discuter, sur quelle base discuter, ou même est-ce souhaitable ou pas, d'ailleurs, de discuter avec des Israéliens juifs, et quelles sont les conditions pour qu'un dialogue fécond puisse avoir lieu, et quelle est la place des juifs antisionistes et des juifs anticolonialistes dans le mouvement de la libération de la Palestine. Et dans un second temps, peut-être que je le répéterai un peu plus tard, parce que là, ça fait une question tunnel, mais dans un second temps, pour les organisations juives de solidarité avec la Palestine, qui, comme la nôtre, mais comme la Jewish Voice for Peace ou la voix juive allemande pour une paix juste, etc., se rapprochent ou même ont embrassé carrément l'antisionisme. Quel rôle peuvent-ils jouer en tant que voix juive dans le mouvement de la solidarité avec la Palestine?
See, the main catastrophe start when I need to think of your political act as a Jewish. Like, I need to think of what you should do or you should not do because you are a Jewish. When a political idea or a political act is related to some kind of religious origin or any identity and not related to your thoughts, your ideas as a person. This is, in my eyes, the original sin. Huh? Unfortunately, the Zionism has created a situation where Jewish people all over the world have even to support or to be anti-Zionist, or are committed or have obliged to answer this question. Now, I really want to answer these two questions separately, and I will start with the question about Jewish inside Palestine. And for me, there is no Jewish and Muslims and Christians and Druze in Palestine. For me, in Palestine, there is Zionists and there is anti-Zionists. There is people who are part of the colonial mechanism, of the oppression, and the people who are anti-Zionist, anti-regime, anti-colonialist, and working to liberate the oppressed. That's the word in Palestine for me. Huh? That's how I see the word Palestine. If you are a Muslim person who serves in the army, who's killing people or imprisoning people, it doesn't give you any like if your blood is Arab, I don't care. The opposite is the truth. What the colonialism wants us, what the Zionism wants us to think, is to separate people according to their blood type and what are the origin of their mother or I don't know what. And we must not play to the hands of Zionism. So the question is anti-Zionism, anti-regime, anti-colonialism. If you think that it's a colonialism, it's that Zionism is a racist ideology of supremacy that colonized Palestine, ethnic cleansed Palestine, fragmented the Palestinian people, and the Palestinian people have the right to defend themselves and to liberate themselves from colonialism, I don't see any other reason why you wouldn't be considered Palestinian just like me, because the idea of Palestinian, it's another identity that have a political context, that have a political content, even that it's more important than the cultural identity or anything else.
You are telling me that I can be Palestinian? It's very moving.
But you will
really,
never but you will never make the same kubbe.
I will teach you something from Morocco. But it's very moving. The first time I hear such a theory.
No, I really think that identities are built are built in a way that the culture and the folklore are really covering the whole. But if we think of the essence of this identity, when we as Palestinians start to think of ourselves as Palestinians, after we were just Arabs living in the area open to everyone, and it comes from a political need of liberation, political need of confronting a colonialism that want to erase this kind of movement. So I really think that the political content of identities is more important than the cultural or the formal, of course, more than the biological.
Je me permets de t'interrompre là-dessus et je voudrais préciser un petit peu la question, et c'est pas pour être pénible ou quoi, mais je pense que vraiment pour nos milieux militants à nous ici en France, c'est très important de répondre à cette question, et je pense que ton point de vue, en plus on a tous envie d'en savoir plus sur le sujet. Si on prend l'exemple d'un Israélien ou d'une Israélienne qui parle hébreu, qui se sent du coup une certaine forme d'israélité et pas forcément palestinien, mais qui est prêt à se battre contre l'apartheid et qui est pour, alors peu importe la configuration, le nombre d'États, mais qui est pour l'égalité des droits pour tous, de la rivière jusqu'à la mer. Est-ce que c'est un camarade pour toi?
Qu'est-ce que c'est Israëli?
Because
what does he feel toward the flag? What does he feel toward the army? What does he feel toward the intelligence? What does he feel toward Ben Gurion? What makes him like he feels Israeli? What does it mean?
The language. Par exemple,
Hebrew.
la langue, ça peut être... Yeah. Si tu as grandi avec cette langue-là, bon, c'est ta langue maternelle, c'est devenu la langue maternelle de plein de gens. Voilà. Mais alors, passons ce détail qui n'en est pas un... par ailleurs, mais un Israélien qui est prêt à se battre contre l'apartheid et qui promeut l'égalité de tous partout. Ça en fait quoi pour toi?
Listen, I'm not in a situation to make, because every person have the right to think different things, and I can't judge people differently, and there is no Palestinian committee to judge to make passport for this who yes and who not. What I want to tell you is very simple. There is one basic question in Palestine. It's a question of the Zionism. which is the very fundamental ideology of the state of Israel. Huh? If you are not opposing this, if you are not anti-Zionist, I cannot believe that you are truly understanding and willing to understand the historical context that is causing the inequality that we witness today and the oppression that we are witnessing today. I don't like to enter to these places of like this, he thinks this like this or like this. I don't really care about this. I think that liberation is a wider movement that people can change through, and people can be also hurt by, etc., etc. What is important for me to say is as such: if a person feels that he is Israeli and he's proud that he is Israeli, I don't believe that he can, in any sense, understand the catastrophe and the pain and the harm that the existence of this state caused to the oppressed people. If you are feeling okay with saying, yeah, I'm Israeli, without understanding what amount of harm and crime and catastrophe you caused, and ethnic cleansing and house demolition, without understanding what this term means to us, what this term Israeli means to the person that all his family was killed in Gaza, I doubt. Now, again, I'm not in a place to judge. I don't care about judging what individuals mean. I am for organizing my people and my people who thinks like me, people who believe what I believe, in organizing them in order to find the oppressive regime of the Zionism in Palestine. That's what I stand for.
If I may, je pense qu'il y a un problème de définition. C'est-à-dire, Majd, il a une définition. Être israélien, pour lui, c'est une nationalité, c'est une citoyenneté, et ça implique quelque chose. Quand toi, tu parles d'être israélien, tu parles d'une sociologie. Je dirais.
Moi, je parlais justement. Ouais, non, mais juste pour clarifier mon propos, qui n'est pas forcément le mien, mais qui est, je pense à Amnon, enfin bon, bref, oui, dont le nom m'échappe, mais qui était dans le film d'Eyal Sivan, Un État commun, et qui dit, lui, par exemple, la langue hébraïque, la langue, c'est sa langue, et que, voilà. Donc,
tu amènes de l'eau à mon moulin. Ce que j'essaye de dire, c'est que, alors, ça pose la question de un seul État laïque de tous ses citoyens ou un État binational, par exemple. It seems to me that you have different definitions about Israelism. You take it as a national concept and citizenship concept. And as you feel it, and I agree totally with you, it's really a problem to feel Israeli, proud of his flag. And when I feel that when he speaks, but maybe I'm wrong, he speaks about a kind of sociology.
Even though, because society is not something that is created by magic. There is policies and there is structure, economical structure, ideological structure that society is based upon. And this structure is a Zionist structure. It is designed. This society came together from an intention, ideological intention, to create a group who oppress another group. So even this social belonging is problematic. And if you are not aware for this problem, if you are not aware also for the privilege that comes with this social affiliation, if you are not aware that your society is combined, is built on a very, like in education, in economy, in army, in even the nature, the relation to nature, in art, in cinema, in media, in everything. This whole hegemony of this society, the whole ethos of this society, is built upon the structure of Zionism, which aim to oppress and ethnic cleanse the Palestinians.
Yeah, the concept of decolonizing the colonizer. You know this concept, that in the movement of decolonization, you decolonize the oppressed people, but you have to decolonize the colonizer. And this process has to be made with Jewish Israeli people. And the second concept it evokes to me is the concept of co-resistance. You remember? Yes. Opposed to coexistence, co-resistance.
Yes. I do understand the idea of decolonizing the colonizer. But I don't think that this should be a priority for the oppressed.
Of course.
I don't think that the oppressed should think before he sleeps, how will I make the colonizer a better person?
Hein? Of course not.
Mais c'est précisément une question juive, et c'est parce qu'on est aussi une organisation politique juive.
Yeah, and I'm answering as...
No, it's what you are saying.
Yes.
When you say that to be Israeli is to be so much a part of the Zionism system,
yes.
and it is a way not to be aware of the suffering of the oppressed people. It evokes to me immediately the necessity for the colonizer to decolonize himself.
Yes.
That's all.
Exactly.
It
and
it's not your work.
It's a painful process. Huh? It's a
part of the process, but it's not your part. You don't have to play
exactly.
this.
True. And the concept of co-resistance, I think it's the coexistence between Jewish and Arabs in Palestine existed before the state of Israel came, and it's important notion. And there is a great book by Marcelo Saversky and Ronen Ben Aryeh about this transformation from coexistence to co-resistance. The demolishing of the coexistence between Arabs and Jewish in Palestine was a very basic condition for the state of Israel to be established. Zionism couldn't establish itself as a Jewish state if the relations of coexistence that was before remained. So demolishing it was a condition. But rebuilding this coexistence cannot happen today under the circumstances of systematical oppression and racist partition.
Yes.
But what is possible is for people who are opposing Zionism, who are understanding the harm and evil that it has been done to Palestinians and to anyone who is living here and to the world, because we know what the regime of Israel did in supporting criminal regimes everywhere in the world. I think resisting this regime through any mean, through BDS, through protesting, through social work, through everything. This resistance is what defines a person to me. I don't really care who his mother or who her mother, or I don't know all these stupid questions that the ministry asks to decide who is Jewish and who is not. This is insanity for me. I think that resistance is the only question that defines a person. And not only in Palestine, everywhere in the world. If you are resisting evil regimes, if you are resisting oppression, if you are resisting any kind of injustice, you are in the right people. You are in the chosen people. Huh? So I just think that co-resistance is not only an Arab-Jewish term. It's a universal term that we have to use everywhere in the world. So and it applies to. We can see it today when someone is right in this case, but in this case he supports something that is oppressive, like someone who supports Palestine but also support the regime of Assad, which is a catastrophe. So it's this is the importance of this term in my eyes.
Merci beaucoup. Je pense que sur ces paroles incroyables et très profondes sur la résistance comme moyen de se définir collectivement, on va peut-être essayer de s'arrêter là parce qu'on pourrait encore discuter longuement. C'était donc la première émission d'un long cycle fructueux, donc on espère d'émissions de l'Union juive française pour la paix, où on essaiera d'inviter des voix singulières de l'antiracisme et du mouvement de la solidarité avec la Palestine. D'ailleurs, j'en profite pour mentionner quelque chose que je n'ai pas dit en début d'émission. Vous pouvez contribuer, vous pouvez nous aider à financer le studio, notre association, etc., en cliquant sur le lien et en donnant ce que vous pouvez avec Hello Asso. Je remercie Majd Kayyal pour le temps qu'il nous a consacré, pour ses pensées, pour de les avoir tout simplement partagées avec nous. Merci beaucoup. Et Michèle, je te laisse le mot de la fin.
Je voulais juste dire merci à Majd, lui dire à quel point c'était, en tout cas pour moi, pour nous, je crois, passionnant de l'écouter. Et on est très heureux de pouvoir partager ça avec nos auditeurs. Et je voulais particulièrement le remercier sur un des points qu'il a abordé dans toutes les questions qu'on lui a posées, c'est quand il a recentré sur l'impérialisme la problématique que nous on vit de sentir l'affaiblissement de la Palestine, sa fantomisation dans le monde d'aujourd'hui, en le resituant avec un Occident impérialiste, Europe et États-Unis, et en nous redonnant le monde, c'est-à-dire en nous réoffrant le monde avec les millions de personnes qui soutiennent la justice. Ça, plus la résistance comme critère, c'est un très beau cadeau. Vraiment, merci beaucoup.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I'm always really happy to talk to you and to hear from you. And I want also to thank the great team that is making this interview
Merci
possible.
À l'équipe technique, effectivement. Yeah. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, and hope to see you soon in Palestine when we are free and we are.
Inshallah.